What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Drunk Fish Keeping. That is refreshing. This is a nice Mexican stout called For Whom. Got your standard chocolates, coffee flavors, but it's got like ancho chilies worked in with it, so it's got a little bit of a fuller body. Definitely not a bad beer for doing your drunk fish keeping. So, a couple things tonight. The M90. This thing is awesome. Previous video I talked about it. Me and the girlfriend went to PetSmart, happened to get this tank for $135. And I mean tank, stand, pump, power head, salt, the whole nine for $135. So we were tickled beyond belief. So I just want to show you guys this. It's kind of nighttime, so you're not going to see as much, but you've got this nice elegance doing its thing. You've got the torch. You've got the Octospawn and the Halloween Hermit. Back in there you can see the green clown goby. There is a nice mushroom up there. The leather, which is kind of retracted for the night. And then the hammer down here. And you can see the citron over in the corner right behind the hammer, and maybe, just maybe, you can see the frostbite clown back there. This tank, doing a couple things on it. Girlfriend's got the lighting schedule set up where it's kicking in real low. No UV, light blues, 6:30, 6:45. By about 8, it's starting to kind of come up, and then, midday peak and coming down. Everything she's got in here obviously softy, so they need to be fed as well. So lighting is important, but it's also a feeding tank. It's got the Fluval C skimmer on the back. I've been running this on and off as the tank is getting acclimated and really seasoned, shall we say? It's a good word. So we'll use seasoned. Your tank is not seasoned. Instead of cycled, we'll use seasoned. That will be the Adventures in Drunk Fish Keeping wording. Your tank has not been cycled, it has been seasoned. So the tank is seasoning right now, so I've been using the protein skimmer intermittently, not as much as you would on normal with the established system, obviously, because this system is still trying to establish itself. Even that being said, we did use established live rock, live sand. I added seed and remediation to this from Seachem on top of using established tank water out of the old tank, the 54, just because even doing that, you're still not going to get the same maturity you would get with a wholly set up system. So there is some newness in this. Everything's got to build that bacteria. It helps that every fish in here, there's only 3 fish. They're very small. There's only 2 crabs and 2 inverts. So that helps out, or 2 snails, excuse me. So that helps out tremendously in the bio load of the tank. And I've been keeping a very close eye on everything's doing, and the girlfriend's been keeping a close eye on it. I had a bad bristleworm outbreak, which I was going to do a video on yesterday, but she was pulling them out of the tank so fast I couldn't even do a video. I think we got the most of them. If not, I will give you guys a good video on how to catch bristleworms and why good long set of tweezers are important in reef keeping if you don't want to touch a bristleworm, which you don't. So, got a couple comments on one of the older videos for doing the hydras, and I was going to kind of talk about that real quick too. So for the hydras, they have a bracket real similar to this bracket, except you've got 2 foot pegs instead of just 1 foot peg. So it's basically, instead of 1, it's 2 like this that hook over the back of the tank. Yes, they are meant for a rimless tank. They do not work the best with a tank with a inset lid, where you'd have like an inset plastic ridge here to hold a canopy. I made mine work by holding the bracket up as upright as I could get it and as center as I can get it, and then torquing the ever-loving crap out of it to get it to seat. As you can see, this sits great. I know I just pulled the crap out of it, but it sits great. You don't really have to mess with it unless you push the light bar, which most people are going to do. It's not going to move. That being said, mine are set hardcore on the tank. I did crush that plastic rim that would sit in most non-rimless tanks. You can run them. It's going to crush that plastic. Be used to it. It's not going to affect setting the canopy on it, because if you look, there's probably this much indentation where those 2 foot pegs sit. So nothing crazy, but it can be done. If I had my picks doing it over from a fresh start, I would get the rail system that does this. So I could slide the lights where I want them and set them and mount them on their brackets versus doing 2 goosenecks. But hey, I got the goosenecks for free and I got the lights for free, so I'm not really going to complain. That's refreshing still. Another thing was lighting schedule. So when I got the question posed to me earlier today, people are asking like, hey, man, what's about your lighting schedule? And that's going to change for your reef. It really depends on, one, how big the display is, 2, how much coral you have in the display, and 3, the type of corals. Now, obviously, certain corals are going to have more stringent lighting requirements than other corals. Sun corals, you don't put a lot of light on those. A lot of your bubbles and your blastomas, your acans, Duncans, not big, heavy light corals. They like to be low, and I would say low light. Some will tolerate the moderate, but they prefer low to moderate lighting. So you want to keep them somewhere on the bottom, maybe inch or 2 off the bottom. You don't want them up high. You don't want them in direct sunlight. Now you got others like torches, hammers, frog spawns, octospawns, turbinarias, your standard stuff. They don't mind as much as that moderate mid-level lighting, but they don't want it all day. And they also are a filter feeding coral, so you do have to make sure you put nutrients in the tank for them, whether it be any type of reef feed that has your strontium, magnesiums, calciums, all your traces, or whether it would be a reef snow or some form of a filter feeding food. That's what they like. It helps them grow. Now, my specific lighting settings on my tank have changed as my reef has changed. Now, when I originally started the 120, I started off low, huge peak, and flat line. Coral did okay with it. They didn't really grow, they didn't really die, they didn't bleach, but they weren't really doing what I wanted them to do, which is grow. Polyp extension was even with good water changes, protein skimming, and dosing. The color and the extension of the polyps was nothing to brag about, nothing to be happy about either. So I started researching, reading stuff, because in this hobby, no one person's ever going to know it all or know any remotely all of what's going on. So I got on a good page, Reef Central, Reef Keepers, places like that, where other people have done. One guy has a really cool tank, and it's on Reef Keepers, or Reef Central, excuse me. He's got an 11-foot by 11-foot L-shaped tank he custom built. It is 1,300 gallons of display. And it's a cool tank, humongous filtration set up in the back. I mean, it's got this humongous room set off the side full of sumps and skimmers and alcohol dosing and trace element dosing. Just insane system, and it looks great. But what I read was the guy basically said, he had an established tank, and he has a huge collection of really hard to keep in the long term wrasses, anthiuses, things like that. Multiple breeding pairs of fish that normally don't breed in captivity. So, obviously the guy's got a really good setup. And then I read something. He had a crash. The whole tank crashed. He said he lost pretty much all of his coral. And he had a bunch of stuff. He had LPS, SPS, he had stonies, he had all of it. He said a huge crash, and then he started his whole tank back over with frags. And in 11 months' time, he had a completely re-encrusted tank full of coral. And I mean huge colonies of everything you could imagine. So I did some reading into what the guy did. And now his lighting setup is absolutely insane as well. He basically says he has Hydra 26s, Hydra 54s, he has primes. He has primes that he'll have turned like this to shine under a rock. And he said, all in total, between his 54s, his 26s, and his primes, he has 58 lights on that tank. I want y'all to think about that. 58 lights on a tank. And it's a huge tank, but 58 lights and high potency LEDs. And he said within 11 months' time, everything back up. So then I read his schedules. His schedules were up and down throughout the day. Small bursts of peak throughout the day to low to peak. to mimic a real reef with cloud cover and, you know, water clarity issues and things like that. And it's good. I tried that. I tried on the 120, and pretty much for the past 2 months I've been trying that schedule, and I've noticed a couple things. My turbo, didn't like it that much. My Gonioporas, didn't like it that much. My A-cans were okay with it because they're on the bottom. The Blasto was okay with it. They were on the bottom, you know, they're close to the bottom. The only real corals that seemed to respond to it, the Octospawn liked it, and the GSP liked it. You know, and then I said, well, I'm going to go back to my old schedule, which my old schedule was, you know, kind of taper in the morning, nice peak, and then taper back down. Now, I've been doing that for about 2 weeks now, and I've noticed an absolute explosion in my coral. My turbinaria today had so much polyp extension, I couldn't even see the plate in it. My Gonioporas, you couldn't even see the frag plugs. Every coral was out, good coloration, humongous polyp extension, everything looked great. So I guess what I would say is, when you're asking about lighting schedules, adjust as you need to, set your baseline, and then work off the baseline to what fits your tank. Because what works on my 120 may not work on your 90 or your 180 or your 210 or your 120, because everybody's got different stuff, parameter wise, nutrient levels, what they've got in the tank. It works different for everybody. So, you know, I would go into the whole every single parameter where I have my light settings at, but I don't think that's going to help anybody. I think set a baseline. You know, set your UVs and stuff. I would always be just careful on my reds and greens. I would not have them very high at all for very long, just because that's your algae bloomer. It'll help grow stuff, but you got to be careful with it. That being said, everybody's stuff's gonna fluctuate and be different. My tank is completely different from anyone else's tank, just like your tank's different from my tank. So that comes into how you adjust. If you adjust accordingly to what your tank responds to between water changes, protein skimming, you know, nutrient dosing, and lighting, that's how you're going to get your best tank. What works for my tank may not work for your tank. What works for your tank may not work for my tank. There's always general baseline. So I would say coral is a slow growth thing. You're not going to grow huge amounts of coral in a month. You know, it's just like it's a fish. You get a nice fish from the LFS or your local store. It's this big. And you feed it and feed it and feed it, it's going to get big. It's going to grow quick because it's being fed. It's in a good environment. It's got plenty of nutrients. It's going to grow and respond to the input. Coral is slower. Reef tanks are slower in general. They respond to good, steady change. That being said, do your lighting, good, steady change. So adjust with a baseline. And I would say anybody for a baseline, start mid-levels on everything, or lower. Run what you think is not enough for a solid month. Monitor and adjust accordingly. You may have your UV set at 5% on a 2.5 foot deep tank, and realize after a month, it's really not enough. I need a little bit more UV because my coral isn't really responding midday the way it should. I don't have a lot of polyp extension, or everything's kind of half-assed out. That's how you adjust. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort to get that level the way you want it, and you have to adjust. This tank, my girlfriend, I kid you not, has adjusted her lighting settings on this tank 3 times in 3 weeks, because as she's looked, she's realized that she, of course, adjusted off her original setting on the 54. It had to come down some because this tank is nowhere near as deep, but there's a wider spread. She had to adjust. And the corals have responded differently, being in shallower water now to what they used to be, and they've lost a good foot of depth from what they were in. So there's not as much diffusion of the water and the light. So, adjust. Monitor and adjust. That's what I've always done. It sucks. It's slow. You just want to have this beautiful display tank. The more patience you have, the better off your results will be. It's hard to do, but it makes the hobby fun because it allows you to adjust. And once you get that secret sauce, you get that secret sauce in your tank, and you really get that tank tweaked and dialed in just the way it needs to be, coral grows. Fish are happy. Inverts are happy. The tank looks gorgeous. Beautiful. You just stare at it and go, oh my God, I didn't think my tank could look like this. I didn't think my tank could look like this. It's not going to happen overnight. So that was a longer video tonight. I just kind of wanted to answer some questions I've got on some of my posts that were a little bit much to just type back a response on. But if you guys enjoy the videos, please like them. Please subscribe. Questions, comments, put them there. If you guys have a video you want to see, questions you want answered that something I just can't type out, put them down there. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I enjoy doing this. This is kind of a hobby for me. Obviously, you see there's no ads on my videos. I'm doing this for fun. But questions, comments, put them down. Like the videos, subscribe to the channel. More stuff. If I find stuff, we're doing it. I'm doing some stuff with my 54. I'm getting rid of it. And I'm getting rid of my 15. So just, like I said, guys, enjoy the videos. I'm going to bring more to you. Questions, comments, put them down below. Ask me questions. I like doing this stuff. If you guys got a real, brain scratcher, throw it out there to me. I love looking up and researching and doing stuff to bring you guys cool answers and cool videos. So if you like it, put it up there. For the 18th time, I'm going to say this because adventures in drunk fish keeping means you just repeat yourself 14 times. But anyway, guys, appreciate it. Have a good night.